We're going to preview this game against the Washington Commanders on Christmas Eve. Appreciate all of you for watching the 49ers Report. I'm your host, Chase Senior. A reminder, make sure you join us on Christmas Eve for our watch party. We also will be going live on call-in after the watch party to take all of your calls. As we're about to break down for our preview show today, this is a sneaky, massive game for both of these teams with a lot of implications in that NFC playoff picture. And for those of you who haven't joined us on call-in or for our watch parties throughout this year for that matter, you're really missing out, especially with the call-in app. It's one thing to be able to read your comments, get to your super chats on YouTube. It's another for you to actually call into the show, which also airs on YouTube live after the game wraps up during our watch party. If you want to download the app, you can do so right now on your App Store, your Google Play Store, by scanning these QR codes here. And once you do download the call-in app, make sure you subscribe to the 49ers Report, make a profile. Therefore, you can call in. So after a week on the road in Seattle, in which San Francisco won the NFC West for the first time since 2019 against those rival Seahawks, San Francisco will come back home for their second-to-last home game at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara in the regular season. Hopefully more to come in the playoffs as well. The odds makers really like the Niners in this spot. San Francisco is 7-point favorites. I've seen some books boost them at 7.5. The over-under for this game set at 46. Kickoff set for 1:05 p.m. Pacific time, 4:05 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll be going live. I think we might do an hour pregame show again on Christmas Eve, so I hope you all join us. Taking a look at the NFC playoff picture here. Here's where things stand in the NFC, and that's why this game is sneakily important for both of these teams, because there is an opportunity if the 49ers win out and the Eagles lose out for San Francisco to get the number 1 seed. I don't think that's going to happen because the Eagles have a pretty easy remaining schedule against the Cowboys, against the Saints, and against the Giants. The team that we really want to center in on here is the Minnesota Vikings at 11-3. The 49ers are a game back of Minnesota for that 2 seed, but if it came down to a tiebreaker, San Francisco, as of right now, does have the better NFC record. The Bucs are only in that 4 position in the NFC South because that division has been garbage this year. And then you look at the 5 through 7 seeds. After the Commanders lost to the New York Giants on Sunday Night Football, they dropped to 7-6-1. Giants now have the tiebreaker, even though the season series is split at 8-5-1. Cowboys aren't going anywhere in that 5 position. And if Washington loses this game on Sunday against San Francisco, 7-7-1, then opens up an opportunity for Seattle to maybe get into the playoffs. That could be a first-round opponent for the Niners. Or even scarier, maybe even the Detroit Lions. So who you got in this football game? And then we'll start previewing it. WAS for the Commies, SF for the San Francisco 49ers. I do think the Niners win here, and I do think they win by 10. Give me a final score of 30-20. The matchup. This is a game, in my eyes, where the 49ers defense can dominate Washington's offense. 2 levels of play here. You have the supermodel, and you have the high school dropout. The 49ers are the supermodel. The Commanders are the high school dropout in terms of the Niners defense against the Washington offense. I don't know if that worked, but I just did it. Commanders offensive rankings here, and this is what I'm talking about. Points in the NFL, they rank 25th. Offensive yards, they're 19th. Passing yards, 21st. Pass completions, bulk of the season with Taylor Heineke at quarterback replacing Carson Wentz. They check in at 19th. They're a pretty solid rushing team with Brian Robinson, who after he got shot has really been a great story and a good back. They're 11th in the league in running the football. Rushing attempts, they run it a lot, as evidenced by being 8th. Rushing touchdowns, though, 29th. Total touchdowns, 30th. Third down percentage, 28th. Sacks allowed, 24th. And their red zone offense, in terms of scoring touchdowns and converting, throwing the football and rushing it, is not good. And San Francisco's red zone defense and overall defense, number 1 in basically every major statistical category. Washington does have some pretty good weapons, though. This is a trio of wideouts who can win you a lot of football games. Terry McLaurin, after signing that contract, him and Debo were both looking for the bag. They both got it. He's living up to the billing. 68 catches, 1,100 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. Curtis Samuel is kind of their gadget guy. 57 catches, 600 yards, 3 touchdowns. He can also run the football on a little end around. And Jahan Dotson, I really liked him coming out of Penn State because I used to cover Penn State a couple of years ago in Happy Valley, and I saw a guy who was very polished to be an NFL wide receiver for a really long time. He kind of flashed against the Giants on Sunday Night Football with that deep ball from Heineke, and he has 6 touchdowns. Yeah, the yards are down, but this guy can certainly make plays downfield and is a very polished wideout. As for the Washington Commanders quarterback, for a long time here, it's been Taylor Heineke ever since Carson Wentz got hurt on primetime. And even if Carson Wentz came back and he is eligible to return, the Commanders continuing to go with Taylor Heineke because flat out, he's the better quarterback than Carson Wentz. Let's be real here. Now, you look at the numbers. He is having a low completion percentage, 148, 241. He's thrown for 1,600 plus yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Average yards per completion at 7, which is pretty solid, but he has not faced a test like the 49ers defense so far this year. You look at how San Francisco ranks in points per game and total points against here in 2022. First. Second half points, they're also first. Yards per play, third. So even yards have been difficult to come by for opposing offenses. Yards per rush, this is a good matchup here. We just talked about how Washington likes to run it. 49ers do a good job of defending it, first in the NFL in yards per rush and in turnovers. Washington does not force a lot of turnovers. This Niners defense does, and they are very opportunistic in doing so. Now, if you think this Niners defense is the best in the NFL, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. I think this is one of the best defenses that we've seen since the turn of the century in 2000, and it has the opportunity to be one of the best, and I mean best defenses in the history of the NFL. Another reminder to subscribe and join us on Callin. What is it? It's like Twitter Spaces, but even better. An audio social podcasting app where you can call into our live post-game podcast. It airs on YouTube live as well. If we get 100 people in total in our call-in room, we will give away a free 49ers shirt. So download the app. You saw the QR codes a little bit earlier, or you can head to chatsports.com/49ers call-in, and when you go there, make sure you subscribe. Some more keys to victory for San Francisco come Saturday. Will defenses adjust to Brock Purdy? Up to this point, 11 and a half quarters, they have not been able to adjust to Brock Purdy and this offense. Now, it's more so the offense, the design, the complementary weapons around Brock Purdy. But he's done a good job of diagnosing where the blitzes are coming from, making checks and audibles at the line of scrimmage, going through his progressions. Can that continue, or will there be a moment in which defenses really confuse him and they force him to turn the football over to change the tide of a football game? His numbers through 11 and a half quarters, 62 and 93, 678 yards, 6 touchdowns to 2 interceptions this year. A lot of people were saying, Chase, he hasn't thrown 2 picks. There was one against the Chiefs in garbage time and then one the other week. So yes, he has thrown 2 picks this year, 6 passing touchdowns, but of course, that not accounting the rushing scores. He's completed nearly 67% of his passes and average yards per attempt, actually right up there with Jimmy Garoppolo at 7.3. So will defenses be able to adjust? Hopefully, Kyle Shanahan can counter-adjust to what defenses have seen on tape in Brock Purdy's 2 starts and 2+ games. More keys to the game. Take some pressure off Christian McCaffrey. I want to see him healthy for a playoff run because the trade has changed the course of the Niners season. His impact has been profound, and his mere presence on the football field just completely changes the identity of what the Niners can do and their potential and the explosivity of the Niners offense. And how do you take some pressure off of CMC? Put him out into the slot. You're without Deebo Samuel. Let him continue to get some of those slot reps and use Jordan Mason more as a running back. This guy brings this level of physicality that I've fallen in love with. So too have a lot of fans because they keep clamoring for Jordan Mason to get some more reps. Yards after contact per rush in the NFL, Jordan Mason leading all running backs in the league. 4.73. That's really impressive. And his last 3 games, he's really started to come into his own as he's gotten more opportunities. Up until this point, he really hadn't gotten any tick at all. And in the last 3 games, we see a guy who does have a lot of ability, has that level of physicality. He'll run you over and not look back and keep chugging like a locomotive going down a train track. And I love that type of brute force within this running game because we know that the Niners really like to play a downhill physical style. So 50-plus rushing yards in each of the last 3 games, if you use them more, as evidenced by the carries here, Jordan Mason could pop off for 100 yards. For those of you playing fantasy, there's a saying out there, nobody cares about your fantasy team, but I'm going to try to help out your fantasy team. I have a feeling here Jordan Mason could get some more carries here in this football game, maybe get a touchdown and rush for 80 to 100 yards if you're banged up or light at that running back spot. To the defense, Nick Bosa needing 7 sacks over his final 3 games to set the all-time sack record. That is an uphill battle. It's going to be difficult for him to get there. There's a lot of room for Nick Bosa to have to make up to get to those 7 sacks in 3 games. It's more than 2 over the last 3. But with how Nick Bosa has played this year, he definitely has the potential. And check out these numbers for him since returning off the torn ACLs. He played all of last year and this year as well. It's been a total of 33 games. In those 33 games, he has 35 sacks. So getting 7 more isn't out of the realm of possibility against a bad Commanders offensive line, an awful and even worse Raiders offensive line, and also a bad Cardinals offensive line. During that span also, 39 quarterback hits, 158 quarterback pressures. This guy has been a menace for opposing offenses, and that could continue. And these are the updated Defensive Player of the Year odds between 2 of the leaders in the clubhouse right now. Nick Bosa actually the favorite at -155. Micah Parsons at +125. If you want some more background on what Bosa's done this year and my thoughts on that, make sure you watch Monday's show. Also, continued emergence for Kittle without Deebo Samuel. We saw what he did last week against the Seattle Seahawks, and then we'll get to the injury report right after this. George Kittle, I called it last week. Niners were going to use him a little bit more in the pass game without Deebo because he can serve as that security blanket, that go-to guy who where you go through your progressions, you can drop it off to George Kittle. If you scheme something up, Kittle, on that double pump, he wasn't the first read. Then he got free. On that second touchdown, I also don't believe that he was the first read there. Now, Kyle Shanahan digging into his bag of tricks, going back to some Bill Walsh film in order to draw that play up, by the way. Cool little history behind it. But let's see some more George Kittle because Washington not great at guarding tight ends. And again, takes more pressure off of Christian McCaffrey, and it kind of alleviates some pressure for Brock Purdy. 49ers injury report. Javon Kinlaw's practice window activated on Tuesday. Same could be said for Kalia Davis, the late-round pick out of UCF. There's an opportunity for him to return this year, but Kyle Shanahan, when he did speak on Tuesday, didn't make any promises. That means that they have 21 days to activate both Kinlaw and Davis to the active roster. They could both obviously bolster defensive tackle. Charvarius Ward, limited participant so far in practice this week. That goes a long way in him clearing concussion protocol to be the 49ers' number 1 cornerback against Washington, against that 3-headed monster that we talked about. And San Francisco, with a roster move here, did sign Trey Swilling, the cornerback, to the practice squad. Lastly, avoid the trap game spot. This could be a trap game spot. And Washington is not a team that you want to scoff at. They are built pretty well along the defensive line. They play a physical style of football. They're the only team in the NFL to beat the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Now, a lot of that was because they forced 3-4 turnovers on Monday Night Football, so ball security going to come at a premium. But San Francisco, they've won 7 in a row. There's no reason why there should be a letdown week. It shouldn't. You should dominate this football team. You're so much better and improve your seeding in the NFC playoff picture in the process. So before we hop on out of here for our preview, appreciate all of you for tuning in. Washington Commanders, San Francisco 49ers, Christmas Eve. I hope you all spend your Christmas Eve with us with some eggnog, sitting by the tree, a fire for those of you that applies to. Predict the score right now. As I said earlier, 30-20, San Francisco.